thank you very much, everybody, for registering today for our forum, and an introduction to Dr. Alison Alcock, who's our performance support manager and athlete wellbeing engagement lead for Equestrian Australia and High Performance. This evening is an informal presentation around our commitment to Sport Integrity Australia and our relevant policies and procedures in regards to anti-doping. There's no doubt that in the last 12 months, this has been a prominent topic, not only for sport in general, but also we had a related issue with Equestrian with our positive case of illicit drugs. So our education processes have been very sound in the recent programs and lead up to the Tokyo Olympic Games, and will continue to be so and need to be so going forward. And we thought this evening was an opportunity before the season starts and now that the new year has kicked in, for Al to present to the relevant athletes in our program, but also generally to the equestrian community around what our obligations are to Sport Integrity Australia and anti-doping. So I thank you very, very much. I know everybody's extremely busy, and it's a time where we're all getting ready for the season and there's plenty happening. So I'll introduce you to Al and Frodo there, and if there's any questions along the way, I think we're going to field those at the end of the presentation, and there's a function that we can do so, and we'll look to answer where we can. So many thanks again, and Al, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Webby. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. As Webby said, I look after sports science, medicine, and wellbeing, and as part of that, I do the human anti-doping education. So the presentation that you'll see tonight, I've done a few times over the last few years to our high performance squad members, also around the country at some of the state squads, off horse camps, things like that, back when we could actually travel around the country. But I think one of the good things that has come out of COVID is that we can do things like this. So when I said that we would do the national one online, we thought, well, isn't it a great opportunity to open it up? And if there's people who have got an interest or want to know more about the specific rules and regulations of human anti-doping, then it's really exciting that we can actually offer that to everyone now that, your Zooms and all that kind of thing have moved along in COVID. So thanks so much for coming along. Couple of housekeeping things. So this is being recorded. We realized that whatever time we put it on was never going to suit everybody. We've got people all around the world and people have other things on. So it will be recorded and will be made available. And then, as Webby said, just with the recording in mind, I just want to keep it flowing as much as we can. So we will, any questions, we'll address all of those at the end. Just specifics around individual medications, things like that. I won't be able to answer things like that just because there's literally thousands of them, but we are going to go through how to check your own medication. So you'll all be experts at that in the next 30 minutes if you're not already. And also, might sound funny, but no horse anti-doping questions, purely because I tell you now, I will not know the answer. I'm only human anti-doping. So any questions you've got around the human anti-doping rules, regulations, the process, how they do things, then please pop them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. Let me just share my screen if I can. Can you see that? Someone? Are you?
Yep, that's there, thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, so just from a high level perspective, how it works, we have the World Anti-Doping Agency, and they are the global company basically that do the WADA codes, which you might have heard of. That is basically the prohibited list, and all sports, all countries, all athletes, people participating in sport must comply with the WADA code. So in equestrian, even though we might not be able to take anything that can make our horses go better, we still come under that same code that a weightlifter does, who steroids would absolutely make their performance better, or a cyclist where blood doping would absolutely improve their performance. So whereas we just so you know, like, even that I hear it a lot, like, that, how's that going to improve my performance? Like, just know that the reason for that is because we comply with the same anti-doping code as every other sport. And then Sport Integrity Australia is the Australian National Anti-Doping Organisation. So they work closely with the so Equestrian Australia and then all the other sports equivalents to really push, you know, make sure that we're complying with it, and to answer our questions and things like that, they work with us. So it's a bit like the FEI and Equestrian Australia. You've got the World Anti-Doping Agency that sets all the rules, and then we work with Sport Integrity Australia alongside that. So I did mention to some of those that jumped on early, but the Sport Integrity Australia app, if you haven't already, it'd be great if you could download this, because we will go through it to do some interactive stuff to get you to check some things. If you go to the App Store or the equivalent and just type in Sport Integrity Australia, you can download that. Di tells me it's really easy, so that's good. All right, so while you're doing that, the number one rule from an athlete perspective is this notion called strict liability. So what that means is anything in your body as an athlete is your responsibility, regardless of how it got there. They don't take any excuses, and I have to say, they are brutal and ruthless in that regard. Like, you are guilty till proven innocent. So if you say, my doctor told me to take it, unless you've checked it yourself and it's in your system, it's your responsibility because you didn't check it. Don't assume that your doctor knows the anti-doping rules if they're not used to working with athletes. You know, that you might say you're an equestrian athlete and they'll say, oh, well, this is fine, it's not going to make your horse go better. So it's up to you as an athlete to check that medication. If someone spikes your drink, even if you don't know about it, it's in your system, it's your fault. So you'll see people, they're really, you know, you don't share drink bottles or things like that for that reason. Anything in your system is absolutely your responsibility, and they don't take any excuses for how it got there. So often when we think of an anti-doping rule violation, we think of an athlete has something in their system that's prohibited and they get banned from the sport because of it. There's actually 11 different anti-doping rule violations. Some of them only athletes can be sanctioned for, which are those 5 on the left. So having it in their system, attempted use of a prohibited method, refusing a test are examples of those. Of the 11 overall, the ones on the right, support personnel can get done for those. So I don't compete, but I'm a support personnel. So if I administered a drug, if I told an athlete to take something, I can get banned from working in sport because of that. So there was an example at the Sydney Olympics where a gymnast, not Australian, a gymnast took a prohibited substance and got banned for 4 years. And the team doctor that gave it to her got banned for 8 years. And so what that means is that person can't work in sport at all. And this is another thing that isn't always made clear to people, or people don't always know about, that if you are banned, it's not just that you're banned from competition. You're actually banned from working in sport. You can't coach, you can't train in a squad with other athletes, you can't actually compete in any other sport. And for equestrian, this is massive, because for a lot of people, it is their livelihood. One of the anti-doping rule violations you'll see here on the right is prohibited association. So if I got done for a rule violation, I can't coach somebody else because that person is now associated with me as a coach. So that's why you can't go out and coach, or I can't, if I was done for something, I couldn't go and work in another sport because you're banned from all sports and then you're associated with all those other people. So you literally can't do anything in sport if there's a rule violation. All right, so I'm going to go through how to check if your medications are allowed. So actual medications are really easy because they're regulated by the law. By law, they have to have written on the packet exactly what ingredients are in them. So what I want you to do, for those of you who have been able to download the Sport Integrity Australia app, hopefully you can see this. But I want you to check, just search for the medication, and I want you to just check if this one is allowed or not. So the Sudafed one on the right. So if you go in, you'll have to type in that you're an athlete or support personnel. So go to check a medication. You'll put what sport you are. Put that you bought it in Australia. We'll come back to why that's important as well in a second. I'm going to put in Sudafed. You have to accept the terms and conditions. And you'll notice that there's quite a few Sudafeds because I gave you a tricky one. I didn't want to make it too easy for you all. So make sure you search for the right one, and then maybe just pop in the chat whether it's prohibited, whether it's not prohibited, whether it's prohibited in competition but allowed outside. Let me know what people are getting.
So if people could type in the response in the Q&A, and
Yes, please.
we'll just see that.
You might have to shout out to me as well, Jenny, what the responses are, because I can't see them, please.
So I've not had anybody respond. So, yes, I've had 1, 2, 3. Linda, your chat is not disabled. I can see it's not chat, it's in Q&A. Stephen Lancaster says he can't get the global DRO site to open, so he needs to go through the Sport Integrity
Takes you to
app.
the global DRO. It actually takes you through the app to the global DRO website.
Right. Okay, so he's saying you can't get it opened. I've had majority say, one just says Sudafed PE, not prohibited, not prohibited, allowed, not prohibited, prohibited in competition, allowed out of competition are the answers that we've had so far.
Okay, so mixture, good.
Yeah.
So some of you have got that it's allowed and some of you have got that it's only allowed in competition. So when you get the drop down, and like I said, I gave you a tricky one because there was lots of different Sudafeds there. So if you searched for Sudafed, the 4th one down actually said Sudafed PE, sinus and pain relief. So that's not the right one. So the 8th one down said Sudafed, sinus and pain relief. And you would have got that it's banned in competition, but fine out of competition. And the reason for that is because this specific one, and I'm going to show you now just how tricky it is. So the one on the left is all right, fine in competition and out of competition. The one on the right would get you banned in competition. Now, I don't know about you, but I look at that and it's like, spot the difference. Like they're so similar. The boxes are similar. Imagine looking at that on a pharmacy shelf with all the other brands. You know, that's how easy it is to take something that you shouldn't. So the real trick to this is what I always do, is always search for the actual active ingredient. And I didn't tell you that before, so I didn't expect you to know that. But just to make sure, what I always do, so for this one, I would check paracetamol, then you would check, I'm not going to try and name the drugs because I'm not good at that, but you would search for the 3 active ingredients for it. And for this one, they would both be, all 3 of them would be fine in and out of competition. When you get to this one, when you type in pseudoephedrine, that's the reason that that one is banned in competition. So you'll see here when you search for it that the ingredient that's actually banned is the pseudoephedrine. So that's the reason that that one on the right, which is the one we showed you, but you can just see how easy it is not to. So really, you know, you need that app in the pharmacy with you if you're getting something, or ask the pharmacist as well to help you. But the reason that medications are easy is because by law, they have to have this list. And so go on Global DRO, and if you just type in pseudoephedrine, so rather than type in Sudafed and get all those options, because I led you up the garden path a bit, but if you go in and actually type in pseudoephedrine, you'll just get pseudoephedrine and it'll say that that's banned in competition. So just a really good example of how easy it is to use the app and to get an answer really quickly. Like you could do that in a pharmacy pretty quickly, but also how easy it is to not pick the right one. So just make sure when you do it that you're picking you're actually searching for those active ingredients. The other reason why I say always do the active ingredients. So this is an example of a guy, he's a Scottish skier. He won a bronze medal in the 2002 Winter Olympics. And at the Olympics, whenever the medalists finish their competition, they all get tested to make sure that they're clean. Now, he came back with a positive result. And the reason for that was these two, they're called Vicks Sinex inhalers. They're basically, if you've got a cold and a blocked nose, it unblocks it. You put it up your nose and spray it in, and it unblocks your nose for you. Now, he was using the UK version of that. It's absolutely fine. Team doctor knew all that. He had a cold while he was at the Olympics in America, bought the Vicks Sinex, same thing, but the US equivalent had something in it that got him banned from the sport. Now, he never got his medal. He's appealed for it since. They've overturned the ban. They said, yeah, we agree it was a mistake. We agree it didn't make you ski any faster, but he never got his medal returned. So when I say that they don't take excuses, that just shows you how ruthless they really are to not do that. So again, if you checked the active ingredients when you pick that up off the shelf, then you'll always make sure that you picking up anything that is banned. So obviously there's a reason we have medications, and that's because sometimes we have medical reasons that we actually need them, and they keep us alive or they treat whatever we happen to have. So in that case, obviously, if you need to take a medication for a medical reason and that medication comes up as banned, then you can apply for what's called a therapeutic use exemption or a TUE. Now, if you come under these criteria, so if you're ranked in the world top 500 for show jumping, 300 for dressage and eventing, or 100 for all other disciplines at the start of the year, then you must apply for a TUE in advance. So that means, you know, the doctor tells you need to take it, and then you apply to the FEI for this TUE. So, and it's a pretty cumbersome process. You have to fill in a form. Your doctor has to fill in a form. It goes to 3 other doctors who look at all the information and then say, yes, we agree that that's needed. You've got to send test results, scans, all of that sort of thing dates to show you actually need that medication. You can't just say, I've got this condition, I need it, tick. It is a pretty good process. And then if that TUE is approved, then obviously if you get tested, you're going to come back positive, but they'll say that's fine because you have a TUE in place. Now, if you don't come under this criteria, so anyone on a testing pool is basically our high performance squads, and they're all advised of that individually. So if you are 600th in the world, you would be tested, you could come back positive, but if you can show that that is for a medical reason, then you can apply for a TUE after the fact. But just if you come in that world top, whatever it is for your discipline, then make sure that you do it in advance. And you can get in touch with me and I can help you with that, because you really do need to do that in advance, because that's the rule as well. So they'll get you for that as well if you don't. So illegal drugs aren't regulated, obviously, because they're illegal to start with. But the reason that illegal drugs are bad is because they're illegal, you don't actually know what you're buying. So you don't know what's in them. And, you know, you see the stories about people die from them because they took one ecstasy tablet, but it's actually the other stuff that's mixed in with that kills people. There was a case about 4 years ago of a couple of AFL players who took cocaine the night of a game. Now, cocaine will stay in your system for 2 or 3 days, but what happens is, because they're illegal, the people that were making the cocaine had actually put in other things. Because cocaine's expensive, because it's illegal, they'll actually like crush down paracetamol and put that in it, but then you don't get the same effect, obviously, if you've just taken paracetamol. So what they the Sport Integrity Australia guys were telling me is that they ironically used to put in this like horse asthma medication, and that made people like sweat and their heart rate go up and all this kind of thing. So they thought they were taking really good cocaine. And so what happened with these AFL players, they took it the night of a game. They actually got tested positive the following week. And it wasn't because of the cocaine, because that was out of their system. It was actually because the horse asthma medication is a stimulant. And they got banned because of that. So apart from you don't know what's in it, you know, obviously you can get addicted to them. They can ruin lives. So we obviously don't recommend that at all. And then obviously, as Webby said, we had a situation earlier this year, and that situation is still ongoing and being investigated. So just want to acknowledge that that is something that we have had, and that process is still underway. We don't know what that sanction is yet. This is one from November 2018, where a German rider admitted to taking cocaine the night before competition, and his penalty was 2 years. He got a fine. Obviously, the results from that competition are disqualified, and then, as we said before, he's suspended in every sport and coaching and participating. And just to be clear as well, like everything is done case by case. So if someone gets done for a certain drug or a certain medication and they got 2 years or they got 6 months or 1 year, it's not just a straight rule. Everything is done by a case-by-case investigation. So it could be very different as well between people, even though they sound the same. All right, so supplements. So this is anything really from your multivitamins, your protein powders, all that kind of thing. Going through this, these are the biggest reason that athletes get banned. And one of the reasons for that is that they're really not regulated by any industry like the medications are. So because medications are regulated by law, they have to be written on the label what's in them, and then you just check that. With supplements, they're not. So you could go through every ingredient on the list, but there could still be things in them that that aren't on the label because they aren't regulated in the fact that they have to list everything that's in them. Sport Integrity Australia, for that reason, will never, ever guarantee that a supplement is safe. And really, the medical advice on this is, if you have not been told by a doctor or a dietitian that you need a supplement, there's really no reason to take one. So unless you've had a blood test that's told you you're deficient in iron or whatever, then there's really no reason to take one. There is not much evidence for what a lot of them do. The Chief Medical Officer for the Australian Olympic team, he's done a few videos on the e-learning resources that I'll show you later. And he just says, you know, it's really good marketing over really bad science. So, you know, you'll see the ones that are like, lose half your body fat in 10 minutes or whatever it is that they claim to do. And it's just a load of rubbish. Like, but they market it like that. And they have these ripped athletes saying, take this and you'll look like me. And that's not what got them to look like that, I promise you. Like, it's just not, they just don't actually do a lot of the things that they even claim to do. And one of the things the Chief Medical Officer says is that most supplements just give you expensive urine. Like, they're really expensive to buy, and most of them you just pee straight out. They actually don't do anything. So really the advice is, unless you need one and you've been told that by a doctor or a dietitian, then really there's no reason to take one. It's the most common reason that athletes get banned. So 40% of positive athlete tests in Australia are from supplements. That's one athlete per month. And they did a study on some of the supplements in like the health stores and things in Australia, and 1 in 5 of them contained a banned substance. So you go into a health food store, you pick 100 off the shelf, 20 of them have got something in them that would get you banned. And Australia is a pretty clean country. They're probably one of the best. So that is, it's quite a lot. So they will never recommend that you take one unless you need to. So again, another example of where this has happened in equestrian. So Nicole Walker, who is Canadian show jumper. So Canada qualified the team for Tokyo at the Pan Am Games in 2019. So that was in Peru. And she had a cup of coca tea, which is a local delicacy really in Peru, in the mountains. They use it for like altitude sickness and stuff. But she just thought she was drinking a herbal tea, and coca tea actually has, it's what they put in cocaine. So it's actually, so she was tested positive for a metabolite of cocaine, even though she thought she was just drinking a herbal tea. And which meant that Canada, because that positive came in the Olympic qualification, that comes out, that result is disqualified, which means their qualification didn't stand. So Canada did not have a show jumping team at the Olympics.
Alison, we've got a question from Sarah Clark. What about supplements like calcium? And if the doctor has instructed us to take it when we need, do we need an exemption form?
Nope, no exemption, but I'm going to tell you right now what you do with that. So good question. So if you do need to take one, then choose one that's been screened by either Informed Sport or HASTA. So basically these companies are independent third-party companies which go and test actual supplements. So, and they'll say, we have tested it and there's nothing in it to that'll get you banned from sport. Again, they will never 100% guarantee, but if you need to take one, then this is the way to do it with the lowest risk you possibly can. So look for these logos on the packaging. Or the other thing is you go back to your new best friend for human anti-doping, that's your SIA app. So there is a function on there for check a supplement. So go start. Again, the first thing they say is that they'll never guarantee 100%, but you could search. So you can type in there calcium and see what comes up for calcium, and then you can see which ones have been tested. So this example here is what it'll look like if it has been tested. It'll say that it's been tested by Informed Sport. This far right picture is what it'll look like if it's not been tested. And then it'll take you through a questionnaire to kind of look at whether it's how high or low risk it is. So if it's multivitamins, it's a higher risk. If it's like a weight loss product, it's a higher risk, and things like that. So it'll take you through, but I would just pick one that you know that's going to work. So why don't we, so if you go on the app again and go to your supplement checker, you have to agree to the disclaimer. So if you type in, I realized that since I did this presentation, the app has been updated. So if we search for vitamin C tablet, or if you search for vitamin C, I'll show you what one looks like. So if you search for vitamin C, it should come up with a Science in Sport vitamin C tablet. People just want to chuck in the Q&A whether it's been tested or not. And you might need to let me know again. Sorry, Jenny.
Yep,
When we
everyone, I put one response, 2 responses. So we'll give a few people a couple of moments to type away. So responses I've had so far: tested, yes, not prohibited.
Yep. So again, that's perfect. So yeah, but remember it's tested doesn't mean it's not prohibited. So none of these are prohibited, not prohibited. They're just lower risk or risk. So they'll never give you that. But yeah, exactly same thing.
Yep, no more answers at this stage.
Yep. So this is what you would have got, because you've all got the right answer there. So vitamin C, it was tablets, but they've been tested by Informed Sport. You'll also see here that if you click on the little plus sign, it's actually the batch that is tested. So it's good practice as well if you are going to take supplements to actually write down the batch number of the supplement that you are using, because it doesn't mean that every so say it's like a Swiss one or something, it doesn't mean that every Swiss vitamin's been tested. It just means the actual batch number's been tested. So you need to check that every time you buy a new one. What I would say though, top tip, Science in Sport, they batch test all of their products before they go onto the market. So if you know that if you buy a Science in Sport product, and you can buy them online and they ship around the world. So Science in Sport always, every single product that they do, they're always batch tested before they go on the market. So you know if you're buying a Science in Sport one, it has been tested. The other thing for people who are based in Australia, there is a website called batchtested.com.au, and that only sells supplements that have been batch tested. So they don't ship overseas, but anybody who's based in Australia, if you go on there, you also know that it's been batch tested. All right, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but just very quickly, in terms of what happens if you do get the tap on the shoulder to get tested. Yes, you have to pee in front of a stranger. Yes, it's weird. Yes, it's confronting. And yes, people get stage fright and can't go. But they wait until you can go. And then when you eventually have to go, it's all over. So just remember, the person doing it, that's what they do all the time. They've seen it a million times before. And like, that does not make it any better by any stretch of the imagination. But they're there to help you as well. So just ask them questions, ask them what it entails, ask them what you need to do. But basically, they'll go through some paperwork with you. You'll fill in all your details. And then when you go to the bathroom, there will be someone of the same gender that goes in with you. And you have to lift your t-shirt up, right up to your chest. You have to pull your pants down past your knees, and they will actually watch it leave your body. And the reason that they do that is because if people try and cheat, they have all kind of fancy contraptions with other people's urine in a syringe or something. And so they actually watch it leave your body. So I'm just telling you that so that you're ready for it. But also, if you are interested in going through and exactly what happens, there's a really good virtual reality thing on the app that'll actually take you through the whole thing, go into the room, and they'll actually walk you through it. You do get given some bottles, you pee into one, and then they'll tell you to split it into an A sample and a B sample. The reason for that is that if your A sample comes back positive, you can request, and you think it could be a mistake, then you can request for the B sample to be tested. You are the only person that touches all those bottles to make sure that there's no contamination. You seal them all up, you check all the numbers on it match. And it really is if you need the toilet, it's a quick process. If you don't, then it takes as long as it takes. But my advice would be, honestly, just it's their job. Just ask them questions, and like they do it all the time. So it's really not as scary as it sounds. But yeah, I don't know anyone who's had a pleasant first experience, because it's not something natural that you would normally do. So just to finish, for additional info, additional resources, the FEI's got some really good stuff on their website. We've got some information on our website, and also the Sport Integrity Australia. They actually have some e-learning modules. So all of our high performance squad riders, all of our staff have to do certain modules every year. But there's also some good ones on there for parents, for coaches. You can really pick and choose which ones you want to do. So if you do want to learn more, then I recommend you jump on that and see what's on there.